Good morning.
Good morning, Tony. How are you?
I am excited to talk to you. To be honest, we've talked a few times before, both on junkets and in this form, and it's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Well, ditto.
Well, let's get right into it because this is another dimension, if you will, of your love for William Shakespeare. You're playing William Shakespeare. And that's got to be a huge, both joy and a huge, how can I put it, responsibility.
Well, it's you're right about both those things, actually, Tony. But I started. My first sort of access to adult life was hitchhiking to Stratford-upon-Avon in the middle of England to Shakespeare's hometown when I was 17, and a pilgrimage to Shakespeare kind of launched me kind of as an adult. So by the time I came to make this film, All Is True, I have spent the bulk of my career working on his work and trying to find out a little bit about the man himself. And although you're right, it's a big responsibility, it's also a joy, you're absolutely right about that, and also it's by way of a thank you, a tribute, an appreciation, a deep appreciation of what he's done for me and for the world, really, in terms of the inspiration his work gives. And the film is really about trying to understand whether his life, his own life, and the life of his family gave, as we speculate in this movie, quite a lot of inspiration to the work itself.
We know very little, about, as lay people, about Shakespeare's personal life. But I know he was married to Anne Hathaway and had children, but this explores that, doesn't it?
It does. It lets us know there are actually more facts about Shakespeare in the public record than you might think. He did return to his hometown at the end of his playwriting life when his theatre burnt down very traumatically and dramatically. That was a fact. And we pursue the facts of his life in the 3 years after that, during which his two daughters were involved in sexual scandals. He was involved in land dealing. He became a detective in his own life as he tried to work out finally what was the cause of the death of his son Hamnet, who died at 11 years old. And that family secret, if you like, is what unravels, or at least attempts to unravel, the stability of the family. And in so doing, questions are asked about what it's like to be an absentee father and husband. He's been away, being the most famous writer of the age for 20 years. He comes back to a household where his wife, ironically enough, cannot read or write, neither can his youngest daughter. And they have many questions to ask this famous man, who, in the context of the household, is far less impressive. He's just their dad and her husband. And they have questions to ask, and so does he, about the past, their shared past, and what the possibility of a future is. And in that sense, this story is, in its own way, very recognizable in terms of the tensions in other people's families. We all have disagreements and sometimes secrets, and the odd fib goes on. And so we imagine in Shakespeare's, and our point of departure was to try and produce all the facts and then add to it with our own speculation based on what he writes about in the plays. And at the end of his life, just about this period, he was writing constantly about families who wanted to reconcile, about fathers who had difficult relationships with daughters, and about hoping that there might be a happy ending.
He became a self-help guru for other parents, which is very modern in that sense.
I think that Ben Elton's screenplay, it feels very contemporary because he literally gives a voice to the disempowered. Judith and Anne Hathaway are denied a voice because of their illiteracy. And in this film, it shows that although words may not be your forte, passion and intelligence and the right to speak is indeed granted to you. And Shakespeare has to acknowledge that and listen. And it's a story about a family who end up listening to each other painfully, sometimes amusingly, but with great purpose. And I think, just like Shakespeare's work itself, I hope that we recognize ourselves in it and we recognize that we are not alone.
In our final seconds, you share the screen with some great people, Judi Dench, Ian McClellan, and you're directing them. How was that for you?
It was intimidating, but also very thrilling. You get to played tennis with people who are much better than you are, and that always improves your game. They're both incredible professionals, they're master Shakespeareans, and they're fun. They remain fun, they love what they do, and they bring that infectious enthusiasm onto the set. It was a privilege.
And it's a privilege to talk with you always. All is true. Check for it in theaters. And Kenneth, I can't wait to talk to you on the next project.
Thanks a lot, Tony. All the best.